What about Matt? Talk to us about. You mentioned earlier about supplements in the compliance packaging. Kind of expand on that and your experience in that area.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've got a few different ways people are playing it. We've got a lot of great customers, got over 1,000 customers altogether, and they all do it a little bit differently. We've got some guys, they're doing standalone vitamin packs. So it'd be a women's pack, men's pack, bone health pack, heart health pack. Some of these guys have 50 different packs that they're out there, and they keep their patients sticky by being in adherence pouch packaging. So if you missed your morning's dose. And
Right.
I always correlate it back to my dad takes one medication, he takes it out of a vial every single day. And I can't tell you how many times I've been over their house. Hey, Dad, did you take your Lipitor this morning? I don't know. Let me back count it. Let me see.
Oh,
And then he can't figure it out. So he says, heck with it. I'll catch back up tomorrow. Well, that doesn't happen with pouch packaging. If I go and I see my morning dose is still there at 11 o'clock and I missed it at 8 a.m., I'm going to take it, and get back adherent. So we've got a lot of our folks who they're doing standalone supplement packs. But I think the overarching theme is to look at nutrient depletion that your current patients are having affected by their other medications they're taking. And they might be going out to Costco or some big box store and buying those vitamins, and you don't even know about it.
yep.
So the easiest lift that I tell our partner pharmacies to do is every patient, every month, when they drop off their scripts or they pick up their scripts, you have a prompt in their POS system. Hey, are you taking any new vitamins or nutraceuticals outside of us? And then counsel them based on what they're taking, and then try to rope that into their compliance packaging. And then it keeps them sticky and increases those turns.
And pharmacists should be the experts in the supplemental area, but you see supplements everywhere. GNC is it, or
Yeah,
even pop up shops selling.
online
Gas
stuff.
I mean,
stations.
it is crazy. The
Yeah,
opportunity for pharmacies with supplements, I think,
yeah.
is huge out
And,
there.
and to give
Yeah,
them,
yep, sorry. There's a lot of anecdotal stories. We had a panel discussion at the MLC show a couple weeks ago, and Joe Williams, who is serving 7 counties, soon to be 9 counties in southeastern North Carolina, an excellent operator who's been running a rapid pack now for about 4 years. He was reluctant because his patient population is rather low income to sort of recommend, hey, you should be taking this vitamin, you should be taking this nutraceutical, you should be replenishing the depletion that this drug causes, because he didn't think they just couldn't afford it. And recently, he's become aware that those very same patients who he's reluctant to talk to are buying one of these on TV ad commercials that some athlete's holding up, saying, take this medication and it's going to be a whole different life for you. What if you read the little white print on the bottom of the screen is it's not been verified by any entity, and we don't claim any results. And yeah, people are spending 30, 40, $50 a month on these subscription models. And he's basically now saying, well, let me find out who's doing that, because they're wasting their money. They're not buying the right nutraceutical for their current clinical requirements. And he's now converted a lot of people over who thank him for that, because they're healthier and they're spending less money and they're taking them correctly. We've got people like Easton Bryant, who's another Rapid Pack owner, very successful, that got into a good web advertising campaign about strip packaging nutraceuticals, and has customers buying from him as far away as Japan. And so he's now mail ordering the stuff all over the country. In fact, probably mailing to to one of our listeners in their back door to a customer that's one of their pharmacy
Right.
customers. And so here's an opportunity that's ripe for the picking. We've got Kelby Gorman down in Texas doing, Matt, how many packs is he doing?
he's doing over $50,000 a month just in standalone supplement pack sales.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Just about every pharmacy should have that opportunity.
Yep, and it's
And
not a heavy lift. You're bulk ordering this stuff, and you don't have to make up 1,000 boxes at a time. You're just replenishing yourself and your shelf, and you see what works out there with your current patient base, because it's different in every area, right? There's going to be certain price points that you want to target, but you want to have them have good quality, vitamins and nutraceuticals, and not just junk that's not going to work. If they see the effects and they're on
They're going
pouch,
to keep
they're going to
using it.
stick
Yeah.
with it.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, and it's it's a higher margin business than pharmaceutical, typically 50% or greater margins, and no DIR fees. And
Yep.
once you get somebody in your store who's interested in buying your nutraceuticals, what are you going to ask them at the cash register? Are you filling any prescriptions down the street? Why don't you bring them here and I'll combine them in this package for you?
So there's a few things that are happening in long-term care that are, I think, leading to the influx of new long-term care and specifically combo shop pharmacies that we're seeing, like in your clientele and my clientele. I mean, it's a lot of pharmacies are looking at long-term care, and what they're seeing is they're like, we're already doing this, right? Like they've been doing it for years. They just weren't getting paid appropriately for it because there wasn't a methodology to do that. And so what I saw at NCPA and heard over and over and over was, oh, wait, I've got 20, 30, 50 of these patients in my book of business already. And we just, yep, absolutely you do. I mean, we've looked at probably 400 pharmacies in the last, call it 6 months, doing long-term care at home assessments. And that's really what we're seeing is that long-term care at home, but then also group homes, assisted livings. I mean, we're seeing a lot of growth in that in the community space. And so what we got from NCPA was every single pharmacy we did an evaluation for long-term care at home, we found at least 50 to 60 patients in their book of business, low-hanging fruit people that they were like, oh yeah, well, Miss Jones and Miss Margaret and Miss Mildred over there, they're all long-term care. Those are long-term care at home patients. And so now it's just helping people get access to the right payment structure for those, the reimbursement structure for those. And that was really the message at NCPA was, hey, you're already doing the work. CMS has put out guidance that's appropriate for plans and payers to pay appropriately for this now. We're starting to see some movement with both ESI and Optum at the time of recording. So if you're watching this more than about 6 months from now, we'll probably see something different at that point. But if it's in the next few weeks, and we're seeing ESI and Optum are actually paying slightly more in the form of no DIR fees for those claims. And of course, the other big news at NCPA was DIR fees are going away. They're not, just so we're on the same page. They're just not being called DIR fees anymore, and you're just getting worse reimbursement at point of sale. Same methodology. It's DIR fees were a symptom. They were not they're a symptom of a root problem, which is improper reimbursement for community pharmacy. They were just one of the symptoms. They weren't the actual root cause. And so that was kind of what I saw was the two big messages from NCPA was how can you deal with the DIR cliff that's happening?
Yep.
We've heard it called the DIR Armageddon, the DIR apocalypse. But it's that's what we're seeing, right? That's the big gap is how do we overcome January, February, March? And one of the ways a lot of pharmacies are doing it is they're finally getting paid appropriately for what they're doing already for their long-term care at home patients.
Yeah, so a lot of these pharmacies, like you said, they're pretty much all of them have some long-term care patients. They're servicing already.
Absolutely.
So it's just a matter of fact of getting into that reimbursement, getting reimbursed properly for that. And I know, the combo shops, a lot of pharmacies are doing that. They start getting paid appropriately for what they're doing for those patients. Where do you see that going into the future? I mean, are we going to see more reimbursement for maybe some skilled at home services? Where does this go? What opportunities do you think are ahead for pharmacies in the future here?
Well, so part of what we're doing at Pharma Complete is we're working with another organization called Centennial Management Group to create the long-term care at home pharmacy network. And the intent of that network is exactly what you're talking about, Scotty, is to help raise awareness for what these pharmacies are doing and to encourage payers through long-term care PSAOs, so through GeriMed, Innovatix, MHA, through those long-term care PSAOs, get them paid appropriately for the work that they're doing. When you look at it by the numbers, right? There were 14 or so million patients last year that had some long-term care paid for by CMS. So there's only about 3.1 million beds in the United States. So where were the rest of those patients, right? Okay, so let's assume another million cycled through skilled nursing beds. All right, so now we're down to 10 million patients that were serviced in their home. Well, that means every community pharmacy in the country should be able to find 50 to 60 patients inside their pharmacy. Just again, basic math, 50 to 60 patients within their pharmacy should be available to them that are long-term care at home patients. And if they're doing the work, which is, provide all the 10 criteria from CMS, 8 of which apply to community pharmacy and long-term care at home, specialized packaging, comprehensive inventory, all those 10 CMS guidelines. If they're doing that work, they're providing specialized packaging like a multi-dose compliance packaging or unit dose compliance packaging of some sort, and they're providing delivery. In addition, they're doing the med reconciliations that are required within skilled nursing. If they're meeting that level of care, they should be getting paid for that level of care, right?
Yep.
It's for the longest time we've looked at the patient residence code as it's a level of service. It's not. It's a patient residence code. And so what we have to do is figure out how to get pharmacies paid for the work they're doing based on the patients being in their own home, with either level of effort or level of service modifier on there.
Mm-hmm. Without the DR fees.
Exactly. No DR, and that's it. It's like even today, like I said, Optum and ESI are paying retail rates with no DIR fees, and ESI is even putting a little bit of a dispensing fee on there as well for these patients, and that makes a huge difference. I mean, you're talking 8 to 10% difference in reimbursement. On top of that, another $2 to $3 in dispensing fees per claim. That is material. I mean, you're seeing in some cases a 9 to 10% shift in gross margin on these claims, or on for these pharmacies on these claims. And when especially doing what you guys do, you think about a pharmacy going from a 19 to 20% gross operating margin going up to a 27, 28% gross operating margin.
Game changer.
That's game changer. It's completely fundamentally shifting that whole space. And so if half your claims go up by 10%, you're up at 25, 26% again. All of a sudden, you've got breathing room to pay people to be able to deal with the increased labor costs that we're dealing with, increased service costs, and of course, the increased cost to service these patients, because there are things you have to do that are a little bit different.
So, Paul, what would a independent pharmacy that is interested in looking to see kind of maybe the amount of patients that would qualify for something like this? Yep. What's the first steps to going to working on that?
Absolutely. So it's a great question. First step really is, okay, we've been talking about this for probably 6 years, but do you have a MedSync program? If you have a MedSync program, you probably got long-term care at home patients in the MedSync program.
Yeah.
And you probably can just think about, okay, which are the patients that I deliver to because I have to, not because I want to, if that makes sense.
Right.
It's like not because it's an ease of use for them. It's they can't get out of the house to come in the pharmacy. Those are your long-term care at home patients right there. I mean, and again, most pharmacies can find 50 to 60 of those easily. PharmaComplete actually has a tool we call long-term care at home assessment, where we actually will look at your claims data for the last 30 days and pull out the bins and PCNs that are affected by this, and can give you a rough idea of dollars that your pharmacy can actually capture.
Nice.
It's not at all necessary. I mean, you don't have to do it by any means, but we have a very, very reliable tool that says this is what we are able to find for you. And most pharmacies, though, if they've got a sync program, they're already doing some packaging already. That's their starting point. That's their beginning book of business. Also, any patients you have are in group homes. Those are long-term care automatically. Those are assisted living reimbursement, which, again, no DIR fees, add to between $2.50 and $4 for a dispensing fee. That's real money. You're talking $8 to $9 per prescription in found revenue there.
And these patients have a lot of prescriptions typically.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple prescriptions.
That's a good point. Yeah. It's usually not a one prescription type of scenario.
No,
here.
These are almost always 7, 8, 9 or more. I mean, my chief of staff her dad's a great example. He's on 27 medications, can't drive himself safely. I mean, not saying he doesn't try to drive on the tractor or get in the, drive out to drive to the pharmacy, but he shouldn't be, right? He's 27 medications, insulin twice a day. He's a prime example of the person that your pharmacy's looking for, because, he also, is kind of stubborn and doesn't want to have people think that he's sick. And so, he was very reticent to take compliance packaging. And one of the things that we found very effective, and not just with him, but with other patients, is let the patient know, hey, there's a benefit that your insurance will pay for that you're not taking advantage of. And fun story, people are like, wait, I'm not getting something I'm supposed to.
They want the free stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. I need that. That
Oh,
needs
yeah.
to be for me. And so the patients are embracing it more now, again, because it's a benefit. They're leaning into this a little bit more, and we found it much easier to get them to accept the care and the
Special purpose networks, those are going very, very well. So special purpose networks are part of CPSN activities, but they're more turnkey like niches. So let's say you want to put a primary care clinic in your pharmacy. How in the world do you go about doing that? Well, there are resources for that through a special purpose network. Big Tree Medical has partnered with CPSN to help with that. We actually launched at Moose Pharmacy of Monroe, where my site is. We launched a Big Tree clinic in September. I'm happy to tell you, I just got my financials for January. It's our first break-even month. So we are
Nice.
We are past the
That didn't take too long. That's good.
No.
And we are, we're moving now. We've got about 109 patients.
I was waiting for this one to come up. I knew this was going to be one on your list. We've got a lot of clients that have jumped into this as well about that same time frame. So
they're growing very rapidly, actually, and there are some things in the model. You know, there's being the first to launch. You learn some lessons, and everybody tries to get better at the improvement. But so it's making its way into being a very, very efficient model. But it's a really cool model at the concept as a whole. Coming in for cheap primary care, like easy access,
all in one place,
virtual or in your pharmacy. Like it's a really cool solution for anyone, really. And it's a direct pay model, but when you look at the big scheme of things, there's no wait times. It's relatively cheap compared to the marketplace. It's going really well, and more patients are hearing about it. I think that the play that community pharmacies really want to focus on as they start to launch something like this is getting in with self-insured employers, making sure they're aware that this program exists, because I think it can save self-insured employers a lot of money, but also be a really tremendous resource for employees, and it be a very effective benefit for employees for quick health access.
Yep.
So that's going really well. And they're launching, like I said, Big Tree, based out of Missouri, is launching with community pharmacies that are CPSN members that have interest in seeing that. What do you need to start? A commitment to do it, and a 10 by 10 room space. They help you
10 by 10. That's right.
They help you with most of the other details. And we were really lucky because we got this amazing physician assistant. She's awesome. We work really well together. It's pretty risk-free. I mean, from a community pharmacy standpoint, the only thing you're risking is if your roommate, your personalities don't match or something like that with your nurse practitioner or physician assistant. But we're lucky because she's awesome. So things are going really well.
That's awesome. Selfishly, on the customer level, I wish I had something like that in my area. I would use that a lot.
You'd be a regular.
Yeah, there'd be a kid in there at some point.
It's probably coming to a neighborhood near you, or will be soon.
I'll tell you, I mean, what perfect sense does that make? Having a pharmacy and having a 10 by 10 in there.
Yeah. Which everybody,
just
everybody
be seen and have the script filled right there.
The first place to start, if you want to consider bringing in the most popular thing of the compounded injectable GLPs, but if you're looking into entering a relationship with a 503B, FDA registered outsourcing facility, or a central fill agreement with a 503A pharmacy, I would first check your state board and see if they've published any kind of requirements. And what you can do, because not a lot of state boards have come out vocally, but some have. So definitely see what's out there, see what your central fill rules and regs are in your state, and then reach out to some of the 503B and 503A pharmacies. We've vetted a ton of them because let's say, for example, there's maybe 75 503B pharmacies in the country. Not all of them are selling to pharmacies because the traditional model for them, if you remember, is 503Bs typically sell products and shortage products to hospitals, to clinics, not usually to pharmacies. This 503B selling to a pharmacies is kind of a new phenomenon, and it was brought on by the GLPs getting on the shortage list, it being such a hot product that all these patients want. And actually, the FDA approached multiple 503B FDA registered outsourcing facilities and asked them if they would start compounding commercial copies of the semaglutide and the tirzepatide to help the market with this shortage. But these are really the first products that I've seen in my history. I've been working in pharmacy since I was 16, and that was a long time ago. And this is the first time that I've seen a blockbuster pharmacy product on an FDA shortage. So this whole new channel, it's fascinating. But to answer your first question, check your state regulations and then reach out to some of the 503Bs, 503As, just to ask them, do you ship into my state? Is there anything I need to be aware of? How can I get started? Can you send me some information, documentation about your products or how I would get started? And then, of course, shameless plug, we've done all the research at my company, Atrium 24, and had a ton of like webinars and made marketing materials and a whole sales system because this is an exciting opportunity.
It sure is. And Nicolette, you can't get you can't buy from 503A though and resell it, right? It's got to be the 503B.
It depends. It's just different. You can, but it's different. So 503A by definition is a pharmacy. So all of our pharmacies are 503A. If you are buying a sterile compounded semaglutide, tirzepatide from a 503A, that means that you found another pharmacy that does sterile compounding, and you said, hey, pharmacy, I want to buy that from you, and I want to dispense it to my patient. There is a way that you can do that through a central fill model, through a 503A central fill model. But the thing about the 503A and the central fill is that's state regulated, whereas the 503B is federally regulated, because remember, those are federally registered outsourcing facilities. So 503A, you can do it, but it's much more complicated because, to your point, now you can't just order the drug, put it in your fridge, and dispense it like normal, like you would on the 503B. With a 503A central fill, you have to patient specific, enter into a deal, like a contract with that other 503A pharmacy who's a sterile compounder and say, hey, I have a prescription for Mrs. Jones, and you have to give them all that information. Here's all the prescription information. I need you to fill it. Then I need you to send it back to me, and now I'm going to dispense it to Mrs. Jones.
Yep. That's good to know. That's a good delineation there. For sure.
I prefer 503B. You might pay a little more, but just it's kind of night and day when I look into and do due diligence and look into 503B pharmacies. It may be more expensive. However, they are FDA inspected. They do have to comply by CGMP, so current good manufacturing practices. They do have to they're a manufacturing facility, so they have to do so much testing, endotoxin testing, bioburden. They have to test the API powder when they get it in from China to make sure it's the right stuff. They have to test it during their manufacturing process, after their manufacturing process. Like 503B is legit. 503A, do you know if that sterile pharmacy that you're asking to fill that prescription and send it back to you, do you know where they bought the powder from? Do you know what kind of testing they're doing? Do you know, has the FDA inspected them? Probably not.
Yeah. What is the typical retail that you're seeing selling these to patients? Retail price?
Good question. We get that question a lot, so much so that I just had our clinical pharmacist, Annie. She made a whole sheet on semaglutide and tirzepatide, strengths and vial sizes and the different MSRPs that we're seeing in the market. But really what the standard kind of semaglutide is the 5 milligram vial. So it's the semaglutide 2.5 milligram per ml, 2 ml. So it's a 5 milligram vial. Of course, as you know, patients titrate their doses up, so they'll start paying more after this. But we're seeing pharmacies sell them anywhere from $200 to $400 or $500, and the cost is about, depending on where you buy it from. Again, the cost is anywhere I've seen from like 90. And remember, you have to look at quality, but I've seen anywhere from $90 to $150. So let's just say cost 100, sell it for 2. I love that. Cost 100, sell it for 4. I love that even more. And I don't say that out of greed, because that gives me pause as a pharmacist, right? To be like, oh, should we be making this much money? Well, even you offering this product to your patients for $200, for $400, depending on your market and on the competitive landscape of your market, even you offering it to your patients for that much money, that's still much cheaper than they're going to be able to buy the shortage brand name product for. Because remember, even if it was covered on their insurance, it's like $500 or $1,500. So $400, much cheaper.
Well, it is a supply and demand issue, right? And because there's not a whole lot of supply, there's limited supply, which is why you have the 503Bs. You got patients that are demanding it like crazy. So you can be aggressive with the pricing here, because that's just the economics of it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.